Today's episode is brought to you by Musical Theater Radio's merch store. Looking for that perfect gift for someone or just want to treat yourself to some great musical theater themed merch? Head to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the All Things Theater button on the homepage and check out all the different designs available. And now, today's interview. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. In this industry, I believe it is so important to, as it says in the bio of one of our guests today, wear many hats. And our two interviewees do just that. Today's guests are the producer and artistic director of AMT Theater in New York City, as well as accomplished writers of musicals. Let's learn more about them, AMT Theater, and their new musical Upside Down, which is hitting the stage in March of 2025. Let's welcome Al Tapper and Tony Sportiello to the show. Al, Tony, hello and welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Now, before we get into talking about AMT and your show, we always like to get to know you guys a little bit better. So I always ask for a 30-second bio. So, Tony, we're going to start with you. Tony, who are you in 30 seconds?
Well, basically, I came to New York back in the mid-90s and started doing theater. Around 2003, I met Al Tapper. Al wanted to get into musicals. We started working on the musicals. I first produced the musicals, and then I wrote some of the books that we've done about 7 actual musicals that have been on stage, and we're working with another 2. So that's basically 9 here. I'm the artistic director of AMT Theater and a playwright and a father and a husband, and that's about it.
Cool. And Al, 30 seconds, who are you?
I'm also a father, but we can pass over that. Now, I was in the business world for about 30 years and sold my companies back in 1998 and 1999 so that I could spend all my time working on show business and working on writing music, composing music and writing lyrics and sometimes writing the book. So I've spent the last 26 years doing what I should have been doing my whole life, and love every second of it. It's not work; it's a joy, it's a pleasure.
Well, I'm glad you discovered theater and got over there and came over. But I'm always curious: were you always into musicals growing up, or is that something you discovered a little bit later, Tony?
I was always into musicals growing up. I am tone deaf. I cannot play an instrument. I cannot sing. I cannot really appreciate most of the stuff that Al does or our music director David does. But I loved musicals and still do. I'm passionate about them.
I think it's great that Tony's tone deaf because whatever I write, he likes, and it's very, very nice. I've been writing music since I've been about 10. And the interesting thing is that at that age, until maybe I was 12, I thought everybody could write music. I didn't view it as any kind of a talent. It was just like learning a foreign language. My mother could have written music, but she just didn't want to. But then after I got to be a few years older, I realized that it does require some skill to do it. But my father wrote music too, so it was always in the family. And he was always at the piano, and that's I think I wanted my father to love me, and that was the way to do it. Be like him.
Perfect. So I'm curious, how did the two parallel lines of Tony and Al finally intersect?
You want to do that?
Yeah, sure. I was the artistic director of a place called the Workshop Theater back in the early 2000s, and Al was looking to get into musicals. He was looking to get into producing. He was veering away from what he had been doing in the last 40 years or so. And so we met through a mutual acquaintance, Michael Mislov, I believe. And I said, look, this guy here is really good at writing musicals and such. We didn't particularly do musicals at the workshop at the time, but we were just beginning to grow. So we set up a meeting and it went well. And we did our first musical, which eventually turned out to be Al's musical, which eventually turned out to be Sessions on there in 2008, 2009. And that was that.
My take on it is that when I started with Tony, someone introduced me to Tony who knew him, Michael Mislove, and I did a show called Bettinger's Luggage, which is a straight play. It wasn't a musical. And that's how I started with the workshop. And then I had written the Sessions, the musical, and I remember sitting at a bar, having a drink, and saying, I got to call Tony, because Tony runs this theater, and I want to know whether he wants to do this show. So he said, yeah, let's meet. So we met, we went over the music show, went over the script, went over the score, and we ended up doing it not at the workshop, but at the Playwrights Horizons. Mm-hmm. And then we did it at a theater that we owned back and later on 28th Street called the Algonquin. And we did it, and it played for 300 performances.
Yeah.
Which is the interesting thing is that it's the 16th longest play musical in the history of off-Broadway. The funny thing is that the 15th is my best friend's musical. His was for the 15th longest. Mine was the 16th. If I just played 10 more performances, I would have beat him. So, but it was, and I think that one last thing that I don't think Tony knows is that when we were doing the auditions for this show, one of the young men who came in to play lead, a young guy, when his audition was over, he said to me, I saw your show Sessions and I loved it. I said, what were you, 10 years old at the time? So, but he loved the show. It's nice to hear that. And of course, I appreciated it.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on the 16th longest. That's, that is incredible. 300 performances is that is a long run. And
long run.
And Broadway, it's pretty long.
Right, because a lot of the shows off Broadway don't necessarily, did it run like every day, or was it like some of them like it's 2-3 times a week?
It ran seven performances a week. And oddly enough, while we were not running on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we had another show of ours called An Evening at the Carlyle running. So that ran for 6 months on there. So the theater was full every day with one of Al's musicals, either Sessions or An Evening at the Carlyle.
Wow. Well, and what's it like to have 2 shows running in New York at the same time? Not everybody can say that.
Well, you know what? When you get a review, we got a review from international, not Associated Press, international press, that said it was the best show of the summer. So that kind of got us an audience. So we ended up with a good audience for both shows. And I don't know, it didn't seem difficult at the time, but maybe we were younger.
Right. Yeah. We were definitely younger.
We had more energy in those days.
Yeah, we were definitely younger.
Yeah.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Not knowing is just,
yes.
Isn't it? So I'd love to talk about AMT Theater and what it is and how it began. So give us the genesis of that.
Well, it was basically during COVID. We have been renting out theaters other than the Algonquin Theater, which was a monstrous financial burden because it was 2 floors. It was a gorgeous 99-seat house. It was on the east side and such, but it was really too expensive to make any money on it. So we had to stop doing that in 2010. But so we started renting out other places. We went to Playwrights Horizons. We went to the 14th Street Y. We went to the Roy Arias. We were in Mexico 3 times to do our shows, Sessions, National Pastime, and the Paparazzi. All were done in Mexico. During COVID, I was like, because we were looking to do Upside Down, but I was like, we need to have our own theater again. We need to be able to control when we rehearse and where we rehearse and all this. So we started looking, and it happened to be during COVID, and we picked this. Al picked this place on 45th Street and such. Even though there were other spaces that were bigger and less expensive, I was like, I want to be in the theater district right down the street from Moulin Rouge, around the corner from Restaurant Row. That's where we need to be. So we did.
I give Tony the credit, though. What happened was we were on 49th Street. No, not 49th, 9th Avenue, having dinner at 9th Avenue, struggling with the idea we can't find a play. We can't find a theater to even rehearse in. And so I said, well, let's build our own. And Tony said to me, I got just the place.
Yeah.
He said, come with me. Mm-hmm. So we both get up. We walk around the corner, literally 150 feet. And there's this building that was a studio for
Tango.
And we looked at it and said, yeah, this is a good place to have a theater. And that's what we did. We ended up leasing that building, and we built our own theater.
Now, in the past 45 years, it had been a theater most of the time. It was Primary Stages. It was the Davenport Theater. It was 45th Street Theater. It was everything until that last little bit when it became a tango place. And that only lasted a year.
And actually, I was glad it was a tango place because that gave us a chance to do the theater the way we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And without having anything in front of us that says we got to do it the way it's been done before. So we created a whole new concept in theater, and we have a beautiful theater as a result. And it's in the theater district, which makes it a little bit more than off-Broadway. It makes it a little, maybe the office doesn't have one F in it. So it's been a delight to have our own theater in the theater district.
It's a nice little theater. Actually, I think was in it for a musical about Star Wars.
That's
last year, the year before, or whatever. And yeah, it's cute, nice, great little theater. So congratulations on that. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about, what it's, because AMT Theater is more than just the physical building. It's more of what you're doing with it. Tell us, what you're also doing with that.
Well, basically, we're doing pretty much everything. Right now, we have a youth theater production of Something Rotten called Something Rotten Junior. That's going on tonight, and it'll run for another week or so. And it's the 5th youth production that we've done. We've done cabarets, we have done recitals, we've done original plays, we've done original musicals, we've done films. We have a screen that comes down, and it's a beautiful movie that we're able to show films, and we've done like an international film festival on there. So we're pretty much a little bit of everything, but primarily we want to do the original musicals, and this will be our 5th production, that big production of our own that we want to get out there.
And it also covers the cost by when we're not doing one of our own shows, which is costly. We are renting the theater out or leasing the theater out for a decent amount of money, and we've been very successful in being able to do that. So it's been a can't say it's a home run, profitable financial home run,
no,
but it's okay.
Yeah,
it's theater for a theater. It's doing pretty well,
and that's because theater. Let's be honest, we all know it's not easy to make money in theater, but if you can be happy and you're staying afloat or whatever it is, that is it makes such a difference. So that's fantastic that you're being able to do that. So
true.
I'm on the website. Sorry, you're going to say
Oh, I was saying that you're right. It's not we didn't do it to make money. Nice that we can cover a lot of our costs, but it's a pleasure to be able to have our own theater, being able to do our shows whenever it is that we want to.
It does make such a difference. So I'm on your website and I see you got education because you've done some other stuff. You said you were down in Mexico. Tell us a little bit more about that.
The Mexico thing came about because when we were doing sessions at the Algonquin Theater in 2009, a very well-known, respected, award-winning Mexican director was in New York looking to research his next play, which I believe was the Freud play on Broadway. It was playing on Broadway about Sigmund Freud. I don't remember the title of it. Anyway, it was about therapy, and Sessions was about group therapy. So just for a lark, he actually came to buy a ticket and said, "Oh, I might as well see what this is about too." And he came in, he loved it. We started talking to him about the possibility of doing theater in Mexico. One thing led to another. Sessions went on. It won the award for the best musical in Mexico of that year. And then we did another show of ours, National Pastime, which also won many awards. And then we did the Paparazzi, which was the third one in Mexico, and we loved it.
And we actually had him come up. He was such a good director who spoke very little English. And we still had him come up and direct a show called On the Right Track. He was so good that we couldn't find a better director that spoke English. So we found him who spoke Spanish, ended up bringing his daughter to be the interpreter. But he was wonderful. He did an incredible job. And he still has his own theater now. So we're probably going to do more work with him as time goes on.
I hope so.
That is very cool. What was had you, first of all, had you been down to Mexico before, and what was it like down there? What is the difference that you noticed between, theater in the US and theater in Mexico?
I haven't. I can tell you right now, the food is so much better.
And the girls are beautiful. I'll tell you, the girls are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean,
I never realized how pretty Mexican girls are, but they are gorgeous.
That's what we focus on.
I had a bodyguard with me because I was concerned that one of the cartels might. I had my own plane, so I flew down there, and I was afraid that the air traffic controllers would end up contacting the cartels that would have me capture me, take me to my ATM machine,
right,
take all my money out, and then cut off my head and send it back to my kids. So so Mexico is not a great place for safety, but they are a wonderful. The people are wonderful, and the audiences love the work, and it was all translated into Spanish.
Sure.
So when I'm watching your shows, sessions, I don't speak a word of Spanish, but I knew where the laughs were because I wrote the show. So I knew that there was going to be a laugh, even though I didn't know what it was that he was saying. I was right, and he would laugh, and it was a great pleasure. And then the next two shows also won awards for the best show of their Tony, whatever they call it, or Pedro.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what they call it, but it won that award for best shows.
Yep. I always told Al he had nothing to worry about because if they kidnapped him, I had no money. So they weren't getting anything out of me. It was only if they kidnapped me, then they would go to Al and say, "Hey, pay up." And
he may or may not have a bodyguard, and
that's right, exactly.
That's what an incredible experience to go down and do that and see your shows, translated and seeing the audience and knowing that the jokes you wrote, the comedy translates no matter, who or where you are. So that must have been an incredible.
I can give you an example if you want. Take a second or so. We'll give you an example.
Yeah.
One of the funniest lines in Sessions was the therapist says to Mary, who was one of the patients who came late, and said, "Mary, where were you?" And she said, well, talking about her husband, when he gets that look in his eye, I know I got to get the hell out of there. And I figured I'd go to the edge of the Hudson River and swim across to New Jersey. So the therapist says, well, why don't you? And she said, well, it's New Jersey. So it got a great laugh. They wouldn't change it. I said to them, change it. Make it a city somewhere near Guadalajara. They wouldn't do it. So the great laugh that we had in New York didn't get a laugh.
No.
Somebody says, well, it was New Jersey. They didn't know what the hell. They didn't know that was funny.
But other things were funny to them that we didn't necessarily have in New York. So
I find that because, being from Canada, I always am curious about that, how shows hit differently in different, locations from, New York to Toronto to London to Mexico or, Australia or whatever.
Right.
It's a very curious thing. And, it's hard for a writer to write for the universe. because there are just some things that don't translate, but some things obviously do. Therapy is universal. Everybody needs something like that.
Therapy is, but what was really amazing is when we asked Mauricio why he wanted to do the show in Mexico, he said, "Well, we don't have group therapy in Mexico. It doesn't exist." Like, really? So yeah, now therapy does, but not group therapy, not like.
And women go to therapy and singularly in Mexico, but men don't. It's the macho thing, and men don't have. So he wanted to bring a little bit of therapy to men also.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he's been successful with that or not, but
it's got to start somewhere. So
right.
Why not? So let's translate nice into your new show that's coming up. Since we're talking about shows you've written, tell us a little bit more about Upside Down, the synopsis of it, and what was the genesis for writing that in the first place?
It's a good question. It really is a little muddied as to how it all began. I know it's gone through a couple of different incarnations, but basically the idea is we wanted to create a world where pretty much everything was different, where women ruled the military, where teachers were making huge salaries, and most importantly, where 90% of the world was gay and 10% was straight. And for me, if you wanted to look at a social reason to do it, it's like I thought it'd be nice to have straight people get an idea of what it must feel like to be marginalized and to have this, even though it is a musical comedy, and we want it to be funny, type of stuff. So we just figured that we would try and tackle this and create a world where these two songwriters who had never been on Broadway wanted to create a hit, and they really realized that the only thing that hadn't been done was a straight musical. No one had ever done a straight musical on Broadway. So they were going to be the first. And that's pretty much my concept of it.
And I would add to that when we first started, we wanted to change the world. We wanted everything to be upside down. That's why we got the title. We wanted blacks to be the majority over whites. We wanted gays to be the majority over straights. But after we got going with it, we realized we were taking on a little bit too much.
A lot.
So we said, let's limit it to gays and straights. And in it there is some social commentary to it, because we now see how the gays treat the straights and the way in which straights have treated gays for many, many years now. And it's changing now. Now there's more equality than there has ever been before. And we wanted to express that equality in a way in which still had fun, humor, and still had some people making a little bit of fun. But it would be the opposite. They're making fun of straights. They're not making fun of gays, because the majority of the world is made up of gays. So that was the basis, I think, of the concept that we created.
And they decided to do this Broadway straight musical on the military, which annoys the military, which doesn't want to be known as having straights in the military, because that's out there. So they get involved on in there. So it morphed into something different from what we originally thought, but something that we're really kind of proud of and looking forward to.
You want to hear a funny line?
Please.
At least I think it's a funny line. Tony wrote it, but I think it's a funny line. They have to write a musical about the straights, and they have to write a love song, but they're gay. So one partner says to the other, "You're the composer, so you got to write a love song." He says, "I don't know how to write a love song for a woman. I've never been with a woman in my life. I wouldn't know first thing to do." And the other one said, "Well, isn't there some woman that takes care of you, that does things for you, that answers your questions, that looks after you in every way?" And he thinks for a moment. He says, "Alexa, what's the temperature outside?" And Alexa gives the temperature, and he writes a love song called "I Love You, Alexa." That became his girl.
Nice.
It's a very cute number.
What, tell us a little bit about the production history. When did you start writing it, and the what you've been doing with it up to this production?
We started during COVID because really we didn't have anything else to do. So that was it. It's obviously very hard. Although, to be honest, Al and I rarely write in the same room anyway. We've done most of our communication by email. So this was really not that much different. Except that we could not get a rehearsal space. We couldn't hear it out loud. We did a Zoom reading, which was really not very good because the technology at that point was worse than it is now.
Mhm.
So, it didn't really tell us much. So we waited till COVID was over. Then we did a reading, a live reading here at the theater at AMT. And at that time, we were running Bettinger's Luggage, Al's straight play, on there, and we had a hole to fill for the next production. So we said, why not try this?
We're good friends, but we've written 7 musicals, and we've never been in the same room. Never. Everything has been done. Tony writes the book. He sends me a scene. I write a song. I send it back to him. We work it out. It's all done sometimes on the phone, but mostly text or emails, which I think is a very unusual way to write, but it works fine for us.
Whatever works, right? You roll with it, and you'll obviously have some success. So keep it up. So, excuse me, tell us about the production that's going to be going on in March of 2025. The creative team, etc.
Tavon Gamble is the director. He is a very smart. He's done a number of things so far in his career. He's a choreographer as well. And we just did our first round of auditions. We have our callbacks Monday and Tuesday. We'll begin rehearsing February 3rd, and then we'll do that for about 5 weeks before we open officially on March 7th. David Wilson is the music director. David's been with us since An Evening at the Carlyle back in 2010. He's done the music direction for most of the stuff. We have a very terrific AMT staff here with Tamara Flanagan as like the producing director, Sharon Osowski, general manager, Zoe Reeve is the director of development, so on and so forth. So we have a lot of help from people who really are involved at AMT to begin with. So we're going to start cast it on Tuesday, hopefully, fingers crossed, go into rehearsal and see what we've got.
Very nice. What was it like how did you choose your director? I'm always curious about that, how writers work with, how do they figure it? How do they find them, etc.
Well, we took an ad out in one of the New York journals, and said we were written a show and we were looking for a director, and we interviewed about 5 people, and the one we got was Tavon Campbell, and he's also a professor at Brown University. So thought that was interesting that he also teaches theater, but he got the show. And when you have the others didn't quite get it. He got it, and he's Black, and which was kind of nice because it will give us a nice mix. We'll have Black people in the show, and that makes sense because Blacks are in theater, and it's usually white people that are in the theater. So we're turning that around, and so we have more Blacks in the theater. So that was we went through, interviewed 5 people, started with not knowing any one of them, and picked out the one we thought we would do the best job, and we agreed on him that he was the best interview that we had.
Very nice. I'm always curious when you're putting the show together, was there a song that just came to you so easily? There was a moment in the show that came so easy, and then was there one that just drove you to nuts and you weren't sure how you were going to work it exactly, but eventually came?
I think the song that was the one I just told you. I think that the song was Alexa. I think that we didn't know where we were going. We hadn't written very much, but we knew that two gay guys had to write a straight musical with a love scene. So that became the first song written for the show was Alexa. and it stayed. It hasn't changed at all. So um, there's 27 songs in the show. That's a lot of songs for a musical.
Yeah.
But they're not, they don't go on for 20 minutes. They're 3 or 4 minute songs.
Fantastic. Well, you know what, Tony, Al, it was great meeting you and learning about the show. How do people learn more about yourselves, etc., and how to find out more about AMT Theater and Upside Down, the socials, the websites, etc.?
Sure. They can go to www.amttheater, that's theater.org. And on there is a list of everything that we've done. It's a list of everything that we're doing. It's a list of everything that's coming up in the future. It's got pictures, it's got videos, it's got the staff, and certainly how to buy tickets and how to get in touch with us if they want to get more involved.
Fantastic. And I'm curious, is your theater, you said you bring in other shows. Is it rental opportunities and things like that?
Oh, yes. I mean, we rented it out. I don't know how many times. We rented it out since the theater's been open.
Sure.
Going on its third year.
Nice.
We always have it rented. Very rarely is it not rented. Is it empty? And we have to carve out a time to do our shows.
Right.
And we have to give ourselves 6-7 months because we've already booked the theater.
That's fantastic.
Star Wars was a rental.
Yep.
It was done by Mike and Tom Dangora and such, who've done a lot of wonderful things. They were involved with SUFs and they were involved with Harmony and really smart guys. And that was their show.
Yep. And I interviewed them just after when I saw that show. I met him and then had an interview and talked to them. So yeah, I know it's a good theater. And I guess rental information is on there as well if people, because there's people who listen who are writers and always looking for stuff. So
Wonderful.
An opportunity there for them. Again, Tony, Al, congratulations. I look forward to hearing how Upside Down does and anything else you work on in the future. And if there is, let me know. Come back on, promote that as well.
Come from Toronto. Come see the show.
I try to get down there. I get down there every October. I'm going to try and get down there more, but the Canadian dollar is killing me. It costs so much to get down there now. So,
well, if you do come, I can't pay for your plane fare, but we get a free ticket.
Absolutely.
Two free.
Well, I may take you up on that. That's fantastic. Thank you again, guys, for coming on, and I look forward to seeing where everything goes for you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
It was good.
All right. So we were just speaking with Tony and Al, the artistic director and producer at AMT Theater in New York City, and also the creators of the musical Upside Down, which if you are in New York City in March of 2025, check that out because you'll want to discover new musicals because we got to support each other in this business, and supporting new works is the best way to do that. Tune in next week as we speak with another guest or guest about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.